guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island Podcast, the only NFL podcast where you get your takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback and his friends. I'm your host, Grayson Jenkins, joined again by my great friend and co-host, Sterb. And in today's episode, we're going to be going in and breaking down our most over and underrated teams for this upcoming 2026 NFL season. Obviously, we're basing these rankings off of two different things. We got one, the over under win totals, obviously from Vegas, the Vegas lines, things like that. And then secondly, we're going to kind of base it off of vibes a little bit too. Like if there's a team that we feel going into the season has a higher ceiling than a lot of people do, or consensus, things like that, we'll kind of give our thoughts on that as well. But starting off with underrated teams here they're starting off, what is going to be your number one underrated team?
Yeah, my number one underrated team, I think, is going to be the Texans. They're at 9.5 wins right now, and it's a bit juiced
Mhm.
to the over. It's like minus 140 ish, depending on where you look. Honestly, I think the defense alone, even if the offense is
Yeah.
like a 22nd to 25th best unit, I think that's good enough to get them to 9 wins. And then you take whatever gravy you can get from the offense. Um, Obviously, on defense, like couldn't really get much better from last season. And year to year, we do see a lot of regression on defenses. It's one of it's the more volatile side of the ball, but also you kind of stave off that regression, bringing Caden McDonald and then Reed Blankenship in the secondary as well. So I was a huge fan of McDonald in the draft, and then you just add more depth in the secondary. I feel like that can't really be a bad thing. Maybe they're not as dominant as last year. Given the variance, I expect them to be probably around the same level as last year. But even if they drop off a little bit, I still think this number is just too low. I mean, I think they've beat this the past 2 or 3 seasons, and it's just it doesn't really make sense to me. Um, their run game has been like their big problem that they've had to solve on offense since Stroud has entered the league. Uh, the run game has been like pretty atrocious. We mentioned that on our South breakdown. But basically, you're just trying to get a guy to come in and hit some singles, hit some doubles, keep you ahead of the sticks a little bit, and David Montgomery. And that doesn't put Stroud in consistent situations where it's 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 8 constantly, and then he's having to drop back. Do I think he's a stellar quarterback? No, I think he's about middle of the pack as it stands right now. But you want to keep him out of bad situations and want to support him with the run game. And then they address some of the offensive line this season as well. Um, None of the guys are super super stellar, but they have like 8 or 9 guys that are feasible to come in and start a game. So if you have a combination that doesn't quite work, you can kind of just cycle through your guys until you find something that sticks, hopefully. And that's more than they've had in the past. And then you got the receiver core coming in healthy. We'll see what we get from Tank Dell, but obviously I'm a huge Nico Collins fan. I like the Iowa State guys as well. Um, yeah, I don't think it's the best weapons room in the league or anything, but you got a lot of solid on that offense, and then the defense is just absolutely elite. You got an elite defensive mind over there as well. Um, I think this is just too low for the Texans. I would probably have them conservatively at like 11 wins. Probably if I had to put like a decimal point on it or whatever, I'd probably go like 11.3. Would be like all of the outcomes averaged in my mind. But yeah, I mean this defense just kind of speaks for itself. And then it's not like the offense is dead last or anything. So I feel like 9.5 is just too
I,
low.
Yeah, no, I agree with you here. They were my number two team on my underrated board here. I do think that they kind of finished. I had them at 11-6 for my prediction, just off the top of my head, looking at their schedule, and I do agree that they don't have the worst weapons, and like they have like a very solid weapon room. And Tank Dell is coming back. There's a few clips of him going around from training camp already. He's coming back from injury, obviously with his knee and his leg just kind of obviously just destroyed, coming back, and he still looks pretty quick. So if he's able to come back into this weapon room with the guys that you already talked about and just come in and be at least solid, that's another weapon for them. And then the defense, like you said, speaks for itself across all three levels of the defense. You have a great defensive head mind to lead them, and so I do think that the Texans will beat that 9.5 total. And I do think just going into the season, there's not enough talk about them. I think obviously we were a little bit down on CJ Stroud. We did our quarterback rankings and things like that. We were a little bit down on him and probably harder on him than we needed to be. But I do think that
I don't know.
Sturb
I
was
would have
not.
to
It
abstain.
was
I would have
mainly
to
with Ty and
abstain from
I.
that.
But
Yeah.
I do think we were a little hard on them. But I think as a team themselves, I would be higher on them than 9.5 wins. I do think that they're my favorite to win this division. That would be who I would pick to win the division right now, with the Jaguars having a few key free agency departures. But I do think that the Texans should be over 9.5 wins this upcoming season. Moving on to my, I guess this is my first underrated team on the list. I'm going to go with the Bears here at 9.5 over under win loss. I think the Bears are a team that they're my personal pick to win the division. If I didn't pick them, I know there's a lot of Lions talk right now. We'll probably get into them later on in the episode, I'm sure. But I do think that the Lions are a team that I'm not very high on right now. I know that's a lot of people's favorite to win the division based on their schedule and things like that. But the Bears are a team. I looked at their schedule. I went and I predicted them going 12-5. Ben Johnson today came out and said he wants to have the highest scoring offense ever. I do think that they'll be a team that's going to put up a lot of points. Luther Burden obviously is doing some things in training camp. I think right now he's out, I believe, out of
Yeah.
practice right now with
He should be
a
back by the
small
start of the
injury.
season.
Yes, smaller injury, so it shouldn't really impact their season or their record or anything like that. Maybe he starts off a little bit slower than people expected because he hasn't had a full off season or full training camp to get into things. But I do believe that the Bears offense alone will provide them with a good enough boost in this season to get over that 9.5 wins mark. And I think by a good margin. Their defense is still solid. I want to double check where I had them on my rankings for the NFC North. I had them as the third best defense, but I was higher on them, I believe, than most. And then I want to say, obviously, their offensive line. I do think they've really tried to go to that as a big focus on the offense, just because Ben Johnson knows that if you have an O line, you can run the ball, you get more pressure off the quarterback, things like that. And I think Caleb Williams this year takes another step up. We talked about that in our NFC North preview, obviously, with them. I do think that the Bears are the best team in the division, and I expect big things from them this year. So the 9.5 line just seemed too low for me, Stir. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, it's 9.5, and it's plus odds on the over as well. So you're getting a little juice to the over there as well. Really, it just comes down to like the left tackle spot with Ozzie Trapello not starting the season, and then like the defense is already a little bit injured and it's a little bit thin.
Yeah,
Like
Kobe got hurt.
their pass rush is definitely like one of the bottom pass rushes in the league. So that does kind of scare me. But like you said with the offense, I think it's I think it's probably top 3 to 5 um, at a minimum, and it could be easily the number one offense this year. Um, Ben Johnson run game awesome, block going behind Darnell Wright. You got that two-headed monster in the backfield, and then I think you get rid of DJ Moore, but you could see this weapons room get way better just with year two of Burden and Loveland, and then hopefully Ramadunse taking a bit more of a step once he has an actual year. So I think not all of these pieces have ever clicked at once, which is kind of crazy to say with what the Bears offense showed us down the back half last year. And then obviously you got a magician at quarterback. I think it could be pretty special. So I don't want to be caught being low on the Bears, especially the offense. I think I would probably have them like in my mind around like 10.5 ish wins.
That's fair.
But I could definitely see this team, just everything clicking with the offense and winning like 12, 13 games. But I could also see like the defense really just
Yeah.
consistently letting them down. And then Dylan Thieneman can make up for a lot, but he can't make up for everything. So yeah, I see where you're coming from, but to me, it's like more of that ceiling play that we talked about for me. Like I do think the Bears could go further than most people think they could go, but in terms of like a median outcome, I would have them just slightly over this, but not in my like top 3 to 5 most underrated teams.
That's fair. That's fair. And I do think that they are in a very tough division, and that obviously is going to impact people's thoughts on them. When I just looked at their schedule, I do think that they'll end up probably splitting with like the Packers. Probably the Lions are tough to me, and I will bring up the Lions later on. We will talk about them. And then the Vikings are a team that I think could surprise some people this year. So the Bears are in an interesting discussion in their division. Anyways, moving on to your next underrated team, Sturb. Who do you got?
Yeah, I didn't really cover everything that I wanted to cover with them on or actually, I don't think I was on this preview, but I have the Chargers here. And yes, I'm falling for it again. And I'll happily do it again because they have Mike McDaniel this year. I want to say they're at 9.5 or 10.5, depending on where you're looking. So like it's probably like dead at 10 wins.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think it's definitely a tough division besides the Raiders. Like I think three of those teams are pretty good and could easily make the playoffs. But you give a superhuman level talent at quarterback, Mike McDaniel. I think it's just going to go bananas if I'm being honest. Like Mike McDaniel and Devon Achane, obviously superpower there. Tyreek Hill were great in Miami, great talents in Miami. But even like last year, it's nowhere close to the level of offensive talent. And Mike McDaniel was still doing things with that Miami offense.
Mhm.
And now he gets full access of every single spot on the field rather than, Tua, who needs something to be something to be presented to him a couple seconds before he actually throws the ball.
Yeah.
Where Herbert, has one of the best arms in the NFL, one of the best arms that I've seen in like the past 10 years. I just think it's going to go crazy. You get Hampton coming back. I'm not like I'm not super, super high on Hampton in terms of like a fantasy outlook because I think we could see like a split backfield here. But if you remember that Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane year, like every running back in that backfield
Was
that was getting
feasting.
like eight
Yeah.
to 10 touches minimum was startable. Even Jeff Wilson had some pretty good games, and I believe it was 2022 or 2023. Um, but yeah, I just think like the only really concern that you can bring up is like obviously the defense, like they lose their defensive mind there. Obviously, you don't want to see that. And I don't think um, the talent's not like jumping off the page or anything like that. I think it was maximized a lot by Minter. So that could be a little bit of a concern, but I think the uh, I forget their defensive coordinator's name. I think it's Chris O'Leary. I think the jump
Check.
down from Jesse Minter to Chris O'Leary is
Yeah, it is.
less than the jump up from Greg Roman to Mike McDaniel. Um,
Yeah.
and I do think it could be just like a remember that sort of season from the Chargers because I think Mike McDaniel's probably going to get a head coaching job after this. Attaching himself to an extremely talented quarterback. And then, he's going to be right back to the head coach of a team probably after this season, if I had to predict it. Um, and then obviously, I didn't even mention the offensive line. Like, obviously, we all know what happened with the offensive line last year. It's an absolute dumpster fire, would be putting it kindly, to be honest. And then you get back both of the tackles. You address like a bit on the interior. Maybe you would have liked to see a little more depth given your history there. But it just can't be as bad as last year.
Did
So
they retain Trevor Penning for depth?
yeah, they did.
Okay, then I think they're saved. I think they're saved on the inside with Trevor Penning. I think they'll be all right.
Seems like 15 wins.
Exactly. I think with Trevor Penning on your team, you're good. You're good. No, I will say I do think that the Chargers are the team. Them and the Broncos are the two teams I really could see it having a shot to win this division. I think the teams like that, like people having the Chiefs above the Chargers, I really don't understand that going to the season, especially after what we saw from the Chiefs last season. And they really, yes, you add Mansour to Lane, but you have a few key losses too. So it's not like you're not changing your defense overnight with Mansour and the other additions they made. The Chargers, on the other hand, you add Mike McDaniel, like you said, and that obviously immediately bumps up your team so significantly on offense just because you have a mastermind to be able to truly refine Justin Herbert's craft and give him options and things like that. And also just understand him as a player. He is a guy, he is an offensive coordinator that will go in. around his quarterback and kind of mold the offense to his strengths. And I think that's something that will truly help Justin Herbert. And obviously last year, like you mentioned with their offensive line, he was kind of screwed for the majority of games towards the end of the season there. And in the playoffs, he didn't help. We did talk about that a little bit in our quarterback
He didn't play well.
rankings. He did not play well once again in the playoffs. We've talked about this numerous times, and I'm sure if it happens again, it will come up once more. But I do believe that the Chargers are a team that could outperform expectations, like you mentioned. And it's interesting with Mike. I think he's a guy that maybe he doesn't even want to be a head coach again. He's a guy that maybe just belongs as a coordinator, doesn't want all the pressure on him. I could see that. And I will say this, I don't think he'll ever end up in a cold spot. So it depends on the openings. If there's somewhere cold, I don't think he's ever going to go and coach there. You see him in LA, you see him in Miami. He's so happy when he's in the heat. So we'll see what head coaching opportunities there are this offseason. But I do love that you brought up the Chargers here. Moving on to my next underrated team, and this is 100% not a homer take. I promise. Sturb does have a helmet on his wall, and I promise this isn't just because I'm a Saints fan, but the Saints at 7.5 does feel like it feels criminally low to me. I think the Saints are a team that should outperform that by at least a game and a half. They have the third weakest schedule going into this season. They're a team that is playing in a division that is riddled with injuries already, them included in that with a few key players. But I do think that the Saints are a team. The offense will be explosive this year. We already seen Jordan Tyson have a burst out or whatever it's called,
Blaze out.
blaze out, and he absolutely destroyed Quincy Riley and just made him. Someone said he made him look like Tasmanian Devil, and that was a great representation because he forced like 6 yards of separation on the blaze out, and Quincy Riley had no clue where he went. Spins around, and he's already on the sideline toe tapping for the first down. Obviously, that's something that maybe you can't replicate all the time, but Jordan Tyson's there. You have Chris Olave, who just got an extension. You have Juwan Johnson, who is apparently in training camp, is balling out right now, one of the top reception leaders. And yes, I plugged that in there because in my dynasty league, Sturb knows I've been trying to
He can't
offload
get rid of
Juwan
him.
Johnson. I've been trying to offload him simply because I have Travis Etienne in my starting lineup, and I really don't want to have too many Saints players. So Juwan is available to all my league mates if any of you guys are watching this. But I do think that the Saints offense with Tyler Shuck should be successful. And it sounds like the defense under Brandon Staley is going to have another top 10 year this year. Yes, they were a top 10 defense last year. So statistically, now whether or not it seemed that way when you were watching the games, I'm not really sure because at times the defense did allow some big plays, but the defense still should be good. The offense should be explosive. So 7.5 games, especially in this division where you're playing three teams that don't feel very strong this year, should be a relatively easy record to achieve. So I got to go with the over with the Saints, and I just feel that it's a criminally underrated team right now. What are your thoughts, Sturb?
Yeah, I had them as my last team, just because I wanted to bring down the bias a little bit. But I feel like
It's
if I
fair.
was not a Saints fan, they would probably be 2 or 3. Um, yeah, this is just way too low. You could easily make the case that uh, on paper we're a better team in pretty much every sense of the way going into this year compared to last year. Maybe you could argue the cornerback room, but it really wasn't that much of a strength, anyways. Um, we were right down there with the Chargers in terms of like what combinations of our offensive line we're bringing back. Or sorry, what combinations of our offensive line were due to injury, or percentage. I'm
The
mixing up
the
in my
the
mind now,
starting
but
lineup the starting lineup, like the original depth chart starting lineup, I don't think played together for more than
yeah,
a
I'm
couple
talking
of
about
games.
purely the offensive line. But yeah, I mean, we're just better in every single area. We're expecting a jump from Shuck in year 2, but even if he's what he showed to be over the last like stretch of last year, that's perfectly fine quarterback play. I mean, especially to win this division as well. We see the other 3 teams, dealing with pretty significant injuries and just kind of like just really weird vibes. It
Mhm.
doesn't really make sense for the Saints to be down at 7.5 wins. Given that we're in kind of year two like ascension period, and then we bring in what, in my opinion, is going to be a pretty high impact rookie in Jordan Tyson, to kind of just supercharge this offense. And then we get Travis Etienne as well. Like
Yeah.
I don't really understand the 7.5 wins. And again, this could be bias coming out, but I feel like if I asked, my friends who aren't Saints fans, they would say like, yeah, this is definitely a little low. Like I don't really get the case why.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm fired up, man.
Yeah.
Keep
We won't glaze
keep hating
them.
on us.
Yeah. We'll try to avoid the overglaze here. So we'll move on to the next team. But I do think that the Saints do deserve some more hype. And I've seen some more mainstream media talk about them a little bit. So I do enjoy seeing that. But anyways, Stir, moving on to your third and final underrated team. Who do you got for us?
Yeah, I got the Broncos here. I'm bringing in two
Yep.
teams from the same division, but also I feel like both of these teams are pretty easily going to get over 10 wins. Barring any like super big quarterback injury or whatever. Um, I just don't get this one. There's really there's really not like an elaborate explanation needed. Um, I don't really know how Vegas arrived at the 9.5 mark, because last year they were well over that, and I mean nothing really happened besides like Bo Nix getting injured, but also you bring in Jalen Waddle, who's by far the best wide receiver in that room now. Um, you have a couple smaller, well, not small, they're good players, but you have a couple losses in terms of personnel on the defensive
Mhm.
side of the ball, but you have more than enough star talent to make up for that. Um, yeah, I don't know. This one doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't really compute.
I completely agree with you here. The Broncos were my pick to win the division before really even halfway through the offseason. I put out a FanDuel like futures division winners parlay earlier this month. And they were my easy pick. Like they were the go-to. I don't understand. Like you said, they really did not lose anything. They had a few key players on defense that did leave, but because you have all the talent around that, it doesn't really impact you too much. And then you also have so much talent now on offense, especially in the receiver room. I think in on the in the running back room too. I think you have a decent amount of talent there now as well. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins is now, I believe, injured. Nothing major, I don't believe, but did go down in practice. Went out with the trainers in practice. And then I will say the tight end room too is intriguing to me. I wonder if Justin Jolly kind of takes a step this year, steps in and kind of succeeds in that role. Obviously, you have Evan Ingram, who is solid still. But like you mentioned, I just really don't understand why they kind of downgraded this team. I guess maybe they believe the Chiefs will step up again and take a win or two from the Broncos total. But I just don't see the Broncos team really stepping down if Bo Nix is healthy, if the offense remains healthy. Sean Payton is no longer playing calls. Maybe they kind of think that that will have an impact. But if anything, I think that could maybe loosen up this team and make it even better, just because you're seeing new things, new new techniques, like just new thoughts going into this offense and trying to succeed. And Jalen Waddle is an explosive receiver if he can stay healthy. Obviously, he's dealing with an injury right now, too. Another minor injury. Should be back for the regular season. But I do believe that this team should have success in the regular season again. Should be able to go into the postseason as probably one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC. So I'm really just shocked at the 9.5 win mark as well. So they were on my list too. Moving on to my third underrated team here, I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I do think that the Cowboys are a team that the defense will significantly improve this upcoming season. Obviously, we've already seen some clips from Caleb Downs going into this like second week of training camp where he is already making good plays and shutting down CeeDee Lamb or other receivers on the team. You add even more to that defense with him, that just him in the second level as a leader and someone that can be played all across the box in the backfield, things like that on defense just establishes so much more opportunities for this defense. And then on offense, obviously we've seen George Pickens there be successful. You still have CeeDee Lamb, you still have Javonte Williams, and even like Ryan Flournoy as a third option in the receiver room is a guy that I think will take a step up this year. And obviously the tight ends are still good. Dak Prescott has been criminally underrated for his basically his whole career just because he's on the Cowboys. Let's be honest here. Everyone hates the Cowboys, so you're going to kind of hate on Dak a little bit more than you want to. But I think Dak is a perfectly good quarterback, and he will lead this team past the 9.5 over under win total here. I do think that I picked them to win the division too. I am a fan of the Cowboys here. I think the Eagles will compete. Maybe they split the records with each other in their in their head to head games. But I do think that the Cowboys are a team. I predicted them right now at a at 11-6 record. So 1.5 games over that total. Stirb. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree for the most part, and then you bring in oh god, I'm forgetting their defensive coordinator, but I believe he came over from Philly. I think it's Christian Parker. Maybe that's the Phillies guy, but anyways,
Yes,
um,
Christian Parker. Yeah.
yeah. So you have two pretty big band aids in getting a new defensive mind from a Vic Fangio style scheme um, over Matt Eberflus, and then you also bring in one of my favorite prospects in the draft. I would have drafted him higher than he went in Caleb Downs.
Yep.
He can kind of just clean up a lot of other people's mistakes, which is kind of exactly what this Cowboys defense needed. And then the only like mid-level starter is at the left tackle position, which you don't really like to see on offense. But also, like every one of those guys is like 80th percentile or above. Outside of that, you got one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. You got Dak, obviously. Yeah, I think I would probably have them at 11 wins as well. But if the defense like sneaks up, you see some more gelling with like Donovan Ezraku. You get some contributions for like Malachi Lawrence.
Mhm.
Savone Revel, maybe he could like step in and after like a full off season, he could be something. Yeah, but Quinton just like he like fake turned around the defense for like 3 weeks and then they kind of went right back to where they were.
Yep.
But Quinton is a really, really great player.
He just got
Um,
paid too, I believe.
oh,
Um,
I didn't see that. But
I'll find his salary. Hold on.
yeah, I'm expecting this defense to go from like, bottom of the league to definitely not bottom of the league, probably like average-ish. And then the offense could be a top three unit. Um, so I'm pretty high on the Cowboys, especially like if we're talking about like futures to, make a run in the playoffs or whatever, because I think their ceiling is so high.
Mhm.
I could see, where one injury could kind of like derail them on the defensive side of the ball. And then they just can't really recover from that. But, that's not really fair to do to a team because it could happen to
Yep.
pretty much anyone. But yeah, I like the Cowboys shout here. They would have, they're probably like fifth or sixth on my list, but they would definitely classify as underrated for me.
Yeah, and I just will say Quentin Williams did get an extension. He got a 3-year. It's just over 35 million a year. So he's going to be up there in top paid defensive tackles and probably worth it. So I
Yep.
think the Cowboys definitely handled the rebuild after trading Micah Parsons away pretty well, at least to build this defense up. Anyways, Sturb, moving on to overrated teams here. Who's going to be your first overrated team for the 2026 NFL season?
Yeah, my first overrated team is going to be the Steelers. They're at 8.5.
Yeah,
And I know
I
this
had
is
them
kind of their destiny to finish either 9-8 or 8-9, but that could just been like a Tomlin thing. Uh, the defense, like we mentioned, I initially put them ahead of the Browns. I should not have done that. That was complete oversight on my part. This defense is pretty damn bad. Um, like I said, I will never get that Thursday night football game between them and the Bengals out of my mind. That was the most insane display of defense that I had ever seen. Um, and also, Joey Porter and Jalen Ramsey are both currently injured. So their starting outside corners are Asante Samuel and Brandon Eccles right now. It's not great. Yeah, the secondary, like they bring in Brisker and Jamel Dean. Wow, they actually have or no, I'm reading that wrong. Sorry. Um, yeah, but Jalen Ramsey and Joey Porter are injured. Yeah, and then Jaquan Brisker, Deshaun Elliott in the safety room, not Jamel Dean. But yeah, I don't I don't really like this defense. It's kind of just like a lot of slop that would have been like good like 5 years ago, but
Yeah.
it's not good right now. And then just the whole vibes from the offseason were just terrible. Um, like the whole Pittsburgh native thing with bringing in Mike McCarthy and like the, the reuniting of him and Aaron Rodgers. I'm just not sold on it. I think the offensive line could be pretty decent. The weapons room, it's
It's
like
pretty good.
okay.
It's pretty good, sir.
It's like okay. It's like an island of misfit toys, really.
I can see that.
Um, where it's like a lot of guys that have glaring weaknesses, but do have a couple good strengths. Um, and how much do you really trust Mike McCarthy to like deploy all that properly, and Aaron Rodgers to hold on to the ball for more than a second and a half?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. And if Aaron Rodgers does go down, which not the most insane thing to think, um, could get pretty grim pretty fast. And the fact that like this team has one less win in their predictions than like the Texans and the Broncos, like it
They have
makes absolutely no sense to me.
and the fact that they're higher than the Saints, who have much higher vibe. I
Well,
mean, just
yeah,
vibe in
I'm
general.
comparing to like
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
conference, but
yeah.
yeah, same idea. Like they're just not even on similar
And
playing fields.
and and look at their schedule. I mean, if you look at their schedule,
Yeah,
it's pretty rough. I mean, I think they're like middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule. So I'm not really saying that that's the whole reason. But if you just look at their schedule in general, I struggled to find. I kind of said like 7 wins is probably really all I could
I'm
see.
probably gonna have them at like six and a
Yeah, like
half.
I was struggling to get to 7. And I'm someone when we did our preview of their division, I was like, I kinda like the Steelers. I feel like they could be a scrappy team. I kind of felt good about them. Looking at their schedule though, I can't feel great about this over under. I feel like this is extremely high for what their team is at this current point. Like you said, it's a
Yeah,
lot of older guys that, hey, maybe 5 years ago you have a competing roster here, but right now, it doesn't really look great, and yes, I do think that the receiver room is pretty solid. I'm a big believer in Jeremy Bernard. I think he's gonna be pretty good. Obviously, I think Michael Pittman can have a good chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, but at what point do you just say that, "Hey, like, this team just isn't set for success this season," and that's okay. I mean, 8.5
or
wins,
really
though.
next year, for being
Yeah,
honest.
unless Drew Aller, which I don't see happening, unless he somehow
Drew
just
Lauer with old weapons around. Like
yeah, it's
this team's
it's
outlook is
tough.
pretty damn grim, if we're being honest.
I mean, the tight ends, not not great either. I mean, like,
No.
you have, like, alright weapons there. Running backs, average,
Yeah,
if you wanna say
fine.
average.
They're older.
Receivers, you have DK. You paid DK, but he's not gonna be great for forever, and he's not really fitting in the window anymore.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean,
like you said, it's tough.
call me crazy, like next 5-year window, it's not even close to me between who I'd rather be with them and like the Browns. It's not even
You'd
close.
rather be I mean, if the Browns just hit on a quarterback, they're fine.
Well, I know, but like, yeah, I guess
Well,
that was a
like,
bad example, but it
what
this team
like,
might be like 30, 31, or 32 if you're like starting
yeah.
today and like say going like franchise or something like that. It's
Let
pretty
me
down there.
Let me ask you, if you're the Steel or if you're the Browns and you add Aaron Rodgers, what would you give them as their over under? If they added Aaron Rodgers,
As their over under, I think it'd be like
would it be the same, like 8.5?
I think it'd be like I think it'd be like 7.5 just because of like how
Okay.
Vegas feels about the Browns. But also I think the Browns overall roster isn't like that far off from the Steelers, to be honest. Um
You were definitely lower on the defense too than Ty and I.
what the yeah, the the
Yeah.
Browns defense I am, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I
I
shouldn't
think
have put them I shouldn't have put them below the Steelers. That was a little disrespectful.
no, it's alright. It happens. But yeah, like, I mean, the Steelers defense, you have TJ Watt. Maybe he, brings it back a couple years and
You got Cam
shows up
Hayward
for
still
prime
playing
time.
well, but like the secondary, it's not
It
good. It's not
and it's
good.
banged up. I mean, Jalen Ramsey not the same Jalen Ramsey that he used to be. He's still like he can provide you with some moments, right? Like last year, week 1, I believe he was the one who made the game-winning kinda stop to beat the Jets. So, you beat the Jets would do to him.
That was a crazy game. Crazy to
Yeah.
think about.
I feel bad that we're like kind of shitting on the Steelers, right? Look,
I
I
don't think their
honestly,
fans are that mad about it. Like they want to
yeah,
they want to feel something, you know?
and I was like higher on the Steelers going into this episode too before really looking into their team, like in terms of win loss, and I don't see them getting that another winning season here. I just don't.
Yeah, like what
I'm
are
not seeing it.
the odds that they get like 10 or 11 wins is pretty much it's zero. You know, you could
Yeah,
make a case for a
if
lot of teams over like the ceiling case for the Steelers.
and let me say, if they had the Saints schedule, like if you switch their schedules one for one, just replace the Steelers, I think that I'd be fine with the 8.5 win loss. I feel like I'd be much higher on it, but just the teams that they have to play, I just don't see it happening.
I don't know. I would still be a little bit skeptical of 8.5, even if they had the same
That's
schedule,
fair.
or even if they
That's
had the
fair, but
same schedule.
it's
Yeah.
rough. It is very
Sorry,
rough.
Steelers fans.
Yeah. Sorry for shitting on your team. Anyways, moving on, my first overrated team, and this is definitely like a very close to being overrated. Like they could very easily not be overrated here. I just want to point this team out. It's gonna be the Lions here. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the Bears, but I think the Lions are a team that are riddled with injuries right now. Their secondary is pretty damn grim. When at least when you look at like the safety position, their corners are kind of I think they're solid, but they're nothing crazy. Obviously, you lose Terrion and then Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are both out to start the season, and we don't know how long they're going to be out. They're at 10.5 wins over under right now, and they do have, I believe, the easiest schedule in the league strength of schedule wise. Yes, they do have the easiest schedule in the league, so maybe that helps them, and maybe that's why they're at 10.5 wins here. But when you look at their team, their O line is still good. They have Jameer Gibbs, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, JMO. They have weapons. The defense just scares me so much when I'm comparing them to other teams in their division. If I'm looking at the Bears, if I'm looking at the Packers, if I'm looking at the even the Vikings, I think all three of those teams can compete with them at a pretty decent level. The only thing is, I think the Lions play the Packers week 5, so Micah might still be or
Week 7.
week 7. So Micah actually should be back for that. So I think the Packers will be competing with them pretty well in that game because I think their offense will be able to score on the Lions defense at least a pretty solid level. I think the Lions are a team that reached their peak 4 years ago, or what was it? 3 years ago in the NFC Championship, or was it 2?
2023.
Yeah, so 3
They got
3
beat
years
by
ago.
they got beat by Jaden. Or
Yeah.
2024. Sorry.
No, that was at the divisional? That was a divisional game, right? And then
Yeah.
they went to the championship the year before against the 49. Yeah, I think they
Yeah, but
reached their
they
peak.
really peaked in like the regular season of 2024,
Yes, that
I
is
think.
fair. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the wheels kind of fell off in the playoffs there. I mean, their
Well,
defense
he
kind of
had a 4 interception game. Jared Goff did. No one
yeah,
will tell you
and
about
Jared
that. No one will tell you about that.
who was it
They
that
wanna
had
shit on Justin Herbert.
didn't he have a 4-pick game against the Texans too, and they somehow won? Like they got
I
kind of
believe
lucky.
so, yeah. I
Yeah,
think he had a 5 interception game. Or no, sorry,
yeah,
4 turnover game. I think it was 3 picks, 1 fumble against the Commanders.
something like that. It's
Yeah.
just the Lions are a team to me that I do think still are gonna probably make the playoffs. Maybe they make the wild card, and they probably get to 10 wins, but 10.5 being the over under line. When we look at a team like the Broncos having a 9.5, yes, that's the opposite conference. That just seems off to me. I think 10.5 win over under for a team that last year didn't make the playoffs and hasn't really improved this offseason at a high level just doesn't it's not clicking with me. So I'd put them as an overrated team. Now I put them. I'm just saying them first because it was the first team that came across my list, not because I think they are the most overrated team on my list. But they're just a team that it's interesting to me that they get a 10.5 over under, even though the team itself really doesn't seem very good to me. And I do think that their schedule will help them get to the maybe 10 wins, but I'm not high on the Lions this year, Sturb. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had them in my, short list of overrated teams as well. I couldn't really figure out, where to rank these teams amongst each other
Yeah,
in terms of, like, overrated. I did think the
kind of all over the
Steelers were
place.
kind of in a class of their own if we're just
Mhm.
considering, like, win total. Although I do think, like, the public, given, given a choice between only over or under for the Steelers, I think a lot of them would take that under. Um, but yeah, like the Lions being at 10.5, so they have to hit 11 games to, hit their over under. I, I don't know. Like their interior O line, I think, is also a little banged up, right? Yeah. So they
Cade
lost
Mays
Cade
just went out.
Mays.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have Juice Scruggs, who has started
And,
before, is not very good.
yeah.
Um,
And
but
he's up for a while. I think it's like 10 weeks they said for Cade Mays too.
yeah, I believe so. So like golf with interior pressure, not really a recipe for success there. I do think obviously the weapons are very, very good. Like there's not really much you can say about like Jameer Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Um, but if pressure is derailing your team, especially for a more pressure prone quarterback, I mean, we saw what bad interior pressure can do at various points in the past few years with various quarterbacks who are equal to or better than Goff. So it's just like it is kind of fragile, like you said, and then the defense is kind of in the same spot as well. Like I mentioned this in their team preview, but you take draft discounts on guys that were injured, and then their injuries end up showing up in the NFL. It's
Mhm.
not the craziest thing to think, but you're kind of just left in this position where you're like, oh, if we're healthy, then we're very good. Well, you drafted players who are have have a more prominent injury history. It's kind of more prone to happen. Um, and then like the defense is fine. Like you do have some stars on there, but like I said, they just can't really stay that healthy. Um, and then yeah, they get some gimme games in here for sure. Like I had their schedule pulled up. Like they play the Jets, they play Arizona, they play Miami, they play Tennessee, they play Atlanta later in the year, which I do think is going to be a kind of a layup. Um, but yeah, they do definitely have some gimme games on the schedule. But outside of that, it's like teams that are probably around their level, if not like a little better. So I'm just not like I'm not super confident that this team is just like locked in an 11-win team.
Mhm. I
So
I,
yeah, I agree.
I want to say they're like the not heavy favorite, but they're the favorite right now to win the division too. And I'm
I
just not.
believe so. Yeah.
I'll find that Sturb while you're what's your next overrated team?
My next overrated team is going to be the Giants. They're at 7.5, and I believe it's a little bit juiced to the over as well. Let me check here. No, it's about yeah, it is. It is a little juiced to the over. So if you want to go over 7.5, it's plus 105. I'm just like I'm really not super high on this offense, and then like the defense. You get rid of Dexter Lawrence, and teams were able to run all over them because their interior defensive line was that bad, with the spot next to Dexter Lawrence, and you get rid of Dexter Lawrence, who ate a majority of those double teams in the run game. It's getting to look pretty grim, because like they were bottom of the league in rushing defense last year, and you have this like theoretical star-studded, very deep defensive line, and there is a scenario where we kind of see that all gel together, but then like the back end, you still got Paulson and Debo back there, you got Newsome, Javon Holland. It's like it's okay, but it's not very good. It's probably like 25th ish.
And as
Um,
Saints fans, Sturb, we know a thing or two about Paulson and Debo when he has to be
yeah,
your CB1.
yeah. Well, I think Giants fans kind of learned the Paulson Debo
That is
experience
true.
last year a
That
little
is
bit. So
true.
I think they're aware at this point. Obviously, like the big question with the offense right now is like, will Malik Neighbors come back? And I think he'll come back um, pretty early in the season, if not be ready for Week 1.
Yeah,
But I
I think
just
he's on schedule for week 1, I think.
yeah, he's not on the pup. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't know. And then like I'm not super high on Jaxson Dart. I do think you could kind of make an argument for him, either way last season, but um, I didn't really see any of the progression that I really wanted to see from him. It was a lot of simplified stuff, not really protecting himself or the ball all that well. And you bring in the holy trinity of Greg Roman, Matt Nagy, and Brian Callahan and the offensive staff. Like or the unholy trinity, I should say. It's just like this is it honestly gives me like a little bit of the Pete Carroll vibes in Vegas from last year. Like oh, we're bringing an adult into the room, and he's gonna like finally turn around this franchise, get some like sense into the room. And I think Harbaugh will not be as bad as Pete Carroll was last year, but it is kind of just like, hiring your boys who are all like have been pretty bad in other stops, and kind of just being like, oh yeah, here's Jaxson Dart, who even if you like him, he still has a long way to go to develop from the raw place that he is right now.
Mhm.
I just don't have a lot of faith in this coaching staff at all. And then like the offensive line, it's shown to be a little fragile. You bring in Maui Noah this year, which I do like. But you passed on some pretty good players at the at that draft
There
spot as
could have been
well.
better
I don't.
fits, yeah.
Yeah, I don't quite like the whole selling point with the Giants this offseason has been maturity. And then like some of their biggest offseason moves are just like bringing in, solid role players from their previous teams. And then, like I said, the unholy trinity of Roman, Nagy, and Callahan. Like it's just, I don't know. It's just got some stink on it. And they're at 7.5, which is not like a super, super high bar.
It seems
Um,
high, though.
but I'm way higher on the Cowboys and the Eagles, obviously, and they got to play those teams both twice. I think they probably lose 0-2 in both of those divisional matchups. I'm not super high on the Commanders either, so I think they probably split. But
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm just out on the Giants. Like I just don't. I don't want anything to do with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. I think I would go in the overrated sense of vibes. I don't know, the over under 7.5, like, fair enough. I think that's not terrible. But I think in terms of vibes, people are way higher on this team than I think really makes sense, and it's just because of Harbaugh. I mean, Harbaugh comes over, yes, but you still have Jackson Dart, who, like you said, I think still needs to grow a little bit as a quarterback. I think he's relatively reliant on making plays out of schedule, off schedule plays, and I think also he is more of a quarterback where he has to see it then throw it. That
Did
I
a
don't
lot of
love.
split field reads and design
Yes, split
rollouts
field
last year.
read,
Yeah.
and we saw it against, just because of, I'm bringing this up just because of, I watched the whole game. When I watched him play the Saints, when adversity came and he had to kind of force things and come from behind, play from behind, pause. I think he. Sorry, that was. I yeah. Anyways, we're moving on. We're just moving on. I think that Jackson Dart is a solid player where you're like, okay, he could have a future if he does develop to who he possibly is. But like you said, when you bring in a coaching staff that isn't necessarily the greatest at developing true quarterbacks, I think that kind of scares me. He does still have Malik Neighbors. Isaiah Likely apparently is his second favorite target behind Malik Neighbors. So maybe they find something and that clicks this season, and you finally have a tight end that actually can make plays, and you're not relying on Theo Johnson your whole season. Maybe that benefits
I
them.
mean, and think about the names that we're talking about, like right now, though. Like you're like, oh, if Malik Neighbors isn't healthy, Isaiah Likely's his number one. Like, what are we talking about? And this team
Yeah,
is like, this
Wandale.
team is not classified as like a bottom feeder. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Even
Wandale.
while Malik Neighbors was not supposed to come back until like week 5 or 6,
It didn't
this team
matter.
was
Yeah,
probably still at 7.5 wins. Like I'm staying away from it.
Wandale leaving is definitely a bigger hit than I think people are letting on. I really think he was very heavily relied on for them last season. And it kind of boosted his fantasy stock just for him going to the Titans this year, and maybe got him the contract that he did get. But I do think that the Giants team, the 7.5 wins is a little bit. I'm not opposed to that, but the vibes just being, oh, they're a team that could possibly compete a little bit with the NFC East right now. I just don't see
No
that
way.
happening. It goes Cowboys, Eagles in a tier. Then way
Massive
down
chasm.
here, you have the Giants and probably the Commanders in a same tier. The Commanders are a team that maybe maybe are a little bit below them. Maybe you could put them above them too. I'm not sure
I
what to do
don't
with the
I don't
Commanders
know what
right
to do
now.
with the Commanders. Yeah.
They're in a no man's land. But I'm just not high on the Giants like a lot of people are right now. And maybe that's the New York media. Maybe the Giants should deserve a primetime game week 1, but in my eyes, I don't think they deserve that. Having the Giants on primetime football week 1 is mind blowing to me compared to some of the other primetime games that they had. But I'm fine. The Giants fans, have all your fun. The season will start soon. We will see the Giants be the Giants once again. Same with the Jets. Every year, like, it's kind of like a slight pause of hope, and then it just crumbles down a week as soon as week 1 starts. But anyways, moving on to the next overrated team I have here, and this is going to be a crazy take just because they're already at an insanely low bar. I have the Cardinals here with a 3.5 over under win-loss total. I would pick the Cardinals for no more than 2 games on their schedule. They have an insanely rough schedule. They have the hardest schedule in the league, which is absurd considering that they did not have a high win-loss record. It's their division, and then all the other teams and have to play also fell into this perfect spot. But I mean, the only 2 games that I would possibly consider picking them in would have to be probably the Raiders or the Jets. And even the Raiders game, just because I think Fernando Mendoza will be in by then, and they'll probably have at least something going, I think, to end the season. You kind of like that's a team that could be like the Saints last year, where you feel a little bit solid, at least about where you're going towards the end of the season. I just do not feel like the Cardinals are going to be having a great season. They do have Carson Beck, who just played a great game in the Hall of Fame game and probably played himself in a conversation of, hey, can I start over Jacoby Brissett to start the season? I think that kind of started that conversation for the Cardinals, but they're a team that is going to tank. They're going to tank this year just to get the best pick possible. I don't see them trying to win a whole lot of games. I think obviously go into this year and the quarterbacks next year are going to be pretty damn good, at least as of right now. We always see this quarterback landscape kind of shift as the college football season goes on, but the Cardinals are a team primed to go for quarterback in the upcoming draft if Carson Beck doesn't succeed. And with the teams that he's going to have to face this year, it's going to be tough for him. But if he does, props to you. I just can't see a 3.5 over under being the right number here for me. But what are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say with like these super low teams because it literally just takes like one game over what you expect, and then they're pretty
Yeah.
much there. You know what I mean? Um, so like if they get one upset and then they beat those 2 bottom
I
feeder
just
teams, I
man,
get you don't see it now, but it
it's rough.
happens every year.
Yeah.
Um, where these bottom feeder teams just like end up like I don't know beating the Cowboys one week, even though
And
they're
they
like
have
the best
weapons.
offensive in the week. Yeah,
Yeah.
I I will say I said this in the West preview as well. I don't think the Cardinals are like worst team in the league tier. However, their schedule is just it is
It's one of the worst we've
absolutely
seen. It's one of the worst we've seen in a while.
it's absolutely brutal. Um, yeah, like the third easiest game that you did mention is at I believe it's at the Giants
Yeah.
week 4.
Mhm.
Outside of that, it's like the
You're
Commanders
playing
week 12.
contenders.
Yeah,
Contenders except for the
you're
Commanders.
playing good teams every single week, and I'll say like you're at New Orleans week 16, so like we hold that in a different tier, but man, it's it's just absolutely brutal. And maybe the 49ers aren't playing for anything at the end of the year, and like they
Yeah,
don't really
maybe
care, and it's week 18,
the
whatever.
the
Yeah,
electric
this
substation
I
is
actually have the substation is underrated.
yeah, it's just
Forgot to
reached its
mention that in my
peak.
underrated segment. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be tough for this Cardinals team, and we were talking about it a bit before the show, but like with the schedule being so hard, there's no way that Carson Beck does not get run this year. I
Mhm.
know they just paid Jacoby; it's not like a long term deal or anything, but there's no way if they're like 8 games in and they're 1-7 that the fans are not calling for Carson Beck because like what's your plan with Jacoby after a one
Yeah.
and seven season? Like you might as well just see what you got. So I think I would project Carson Beck to start more games even independent of whatever you think of Carson Beck as a quarterback prospect, current level, however you want to analyze what he just did in the Hall of Fame game. I think it was all right. I don't know. It's the Hall of Fame game, but I think I would predict him to start more games than Jacoby this year, just because of where this team is like at schedule wise. But yeah, I don't think it's a horrible team. Like if they were in the NFC South, I don't know. Like they could easily not be the worst team in the NFC South.
Yeah.
Just granted the current state that it's in. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's the worst team, but I don't know
It's
what
just
to
a
do
tough
with it, man.
spot.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, they're in a predicament I really haven't seen before for a team, just because they already were a bottom dweller last season, and they just come in this year with a tough schedule. Like I feel like most bottom dwellers typically have at least they have that slight like horizon where you're like, okay, off in the distance, at least next year we have a decent schedule. We'll have good opponents next year, and that just isn't there for them.
Yeah, your
So
division is just crazy
it's tough.
good.
But anyways, Stir, moving on to your final overrated team. Who do you got for us?
Yeah, so I'm deciding who I want to be biased against here because I wasn't sure if coming into this you're gonna have the Lions. So they would have been my third team, but got to get a third team of my own in here. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be Falcons. I think it's gonna be Falcons.
Okay.
Um, I just like and I love Bijan. Uh, but you're significantly relying on pretty much three players all on the offense to get you across the 7.5 win mark. And
Mhm.
I believe it kind of varies on depending on where you go. So like over 6.5 is -140, but then other places over 7.5 is right around even odds. So they're kind of like right on that fringe there. But I don't know, man. Like the quarterback situation doesn't strike a whole lot of confidence into me. You got shaky quarterbacks that I don't know. They could both get injured. And you could have, I mean, they're both injured right now. You could have Jack Strand or Matt Ryan coming out of retirement. Who knows? Um, Offensive line is a little worse from last season. And then the edge depth just got vaporized. Like this,
Suspension and injury.
yeah. So this is one of the worst edge rooms uh, of the last 10 years, you could say. Like one of the like since Vic Beasley, they had not had a good edge rusher. Um, and then you could argue that like James Pierce and Jalen Walker were that, and then just gone. They're both gone.
Yeah.
So now who is it? I don't even know who. I think they traded away Ruka Rororo. Um, but that was going to be like one of their guys off the edge. Um, yeah, so now it is Zach Harrison and Cameron Thomas, Chris Williams.
That's
I don't know,
striking
man.
fear. It's striking fear
Sam's
into
gonna
every opposing team.
yeah, not great. I'm pretty high in the safety room. Like I think the secondary could be
I
pretty
love their
solid.
secondary. Yeah.
Yeah, but like they can't cover for 5 seconds. You know what I mean? And it's gonna be really tough because I think they're gonna get down early, and then you
Mhm.
just kind of run on them. And even with James Pierce and Jalen Walker, their run defense was pretty bad, especially from those two. James Pierce was one of the worst run defending like edge rushers I've ever seen
Yep.
last season. So even if he doesn't get suspended, I think that's a pretty easy weak point to poke a hole in them. Um, and then yeah, it just sucks because like Bijan, he's been my guy for a long time, like since his senior year of high school, and sucks to see him go to the Falcons. But I honestly do see this team kind of like bottoming out. Even if I do like the Stefanski hire, to be honest, but he can't really do a whole lot with the overall situation of the team as of now. Um,
He's yeah, and he's got Jag energy to me, just a guy energy where he's just like,
I mean, two-time coach of the year on the
yeah,
Browns.
but even
How
like
many coaches can say that?
I'm watching the videos of him like just around practice, and it's just very uninspiring. And maybe that's because his team just like it's hard to inspire a
We
team
said
with
the same thing about Kellen Moore last year. To be
that is
fair,
true. That is very true. And I will say, like, when he had Baker Mayfield, like, you have a quarterback that at least is, like, fiery, like, relying on Tua to
Like
give you, like,
Tua.
Tua and Tua and Michael Penix, I just can't I can't I can't expect him to hype this team up or drive his quarterbacks or his team just to be solid. And even you didn't even mention, like, I don't believe you mentioned who's behind Drake London. Who are you throwing the ball to?
Yeah, I
Jahan
know.
Dotson?
Yeah,
I
it's bad. I think they're gonna trade for someone.
You have
That's
to.
probably
You
the
gotta do
most
something.
likely. I don't
Um,
know.
it's just there's really 0 depth here. What is their, over under at? 6.5?
Yeah, it's at 6.5.
Yeah, I would go with the under there. I just can't
I mean,
see
it's
them
at
really
it's
being
at
too
seven
good.
and a half on some sites. So over 6.5 is minus 140, and then over 7.5
Really?
is plus 115. Yeah.
Yeah, if it was the opposite way around, I would say that's fine. Like, I would say, like, maybe that's I'm fine with that because they're more favored to go under, but, yeah, I do think that's nuts, and I will say I was gonna go with the Bucks here as my next team. I'll switch it up. I won't go with the Bucks here just because,
I mean, it was between them and the
the
Falcons for
bias,
me.
I don't want it to be too strong, but the Bucks having 8.5 over having a win-loss over-under of higher than the Saints right now just doesn't feel right. But, I'll move on to a different team here. I'm gonna go with the Ravens at 11.5 specifically, just because I think that screams too high to me just in terms of there are a few sites, I believe let me double check here which sites have them at 11.5, which ones don't. The Ravens are at 11.5 on MGM and what is this? Caesars. MGM and Caesars. DraftKings, they're lower. They're 10.5. But if you went to go pick the Ravens at 11.5, they are plus 120 there. Those odds just seem too high. I think the Bengals are a team that will at least split with them. Their schedule is it's not bad. They could easily get there, but I don't love the team in terms of relying on Lamar Jackson to stay healthy to get you to 12 games. I think he should be able to stay healthy, but we just haven't seen it recently. His health has been a true hindrance to the team. Derrick Henry's probably going to have a couple fumbles this year where you're just like, oh, that's going to cost them the game. I think that Derrick Henry's just been doing that recently. He'll win you a few games single handedly as well. That will happen. Derrick Henry is still going to be the king this year, whether or not you think he's going to age, whether or not you think he'll finally slow down or be stoppable
He's a
by
cyborg, bro.
yeah,
He's a
whether or not you
cyborg.
think, hey, this year, this is the year that this cornerback's going to be able to tackle Derrick Henry on his own. No, it's just not happening. Like he will truck through defensive backs still.
Besides the gene, the gene did get him pretty bad.
Besides DeJean, yes, and that was white cornerback representation. That's what that was. As a white cornerback myself, it was a proud moment. It brought a tear to my eye.
You could take him down, is what you're saying.
No, I will say if you gave me 100 chances, maybe if I just dove at his knee, concussed myself, and knocked myself out by just going full out kamikaze on his knee, maybe.
I think he'd kill me and you 100 times, 2-on-1.
Yeah, go Texas tackle drill.
Bash
It's
our heads
possible.
together.
Yeah, just the thing where it's like, what was it in cartoons where you like stiff arm the little kid and they're just trying to
Yeah.
like punch you? That's essentially what it would do to us. I mean, the guy's a freak. But anyways, getting off that tangent, I think that the Ravens are a team. You're relying on Trey Hendrickson as well on the defense here. He's older. He's going to be slower. I don't know if he's going
You
to
didn't have him
necessarily.
last year, though.
Yeah, I just this Ravens team,
I
man. I don't
see. I kind of disagree with this. I think this is like
11
a
and a
perfect
half
line.
wins. It
Yeah,
just seems high.
you bring in like the offensive mind upgrade that you're bringing in is like not even comparable
Sure,
between
but
Minter and Orr.
can you
And
bet
then like,
would you
sorry, go ahead.
would you bet the 11.5 line right now? Just the way it is, would you bet it, you think?
I mean,
I can't see
forced to one side,
yeah.
or just like would I not bet this?
Just would you bet an 11.5 line right now?
Like, what do you? I can only choose over or under, or I can choose to abstain.
You can only choose over and under.
I would go over.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would go over.
I can't get there with them right now. I don't know why. I don't know if if it's just the vibes of the team. I'm still not the biggest fan of their weapons. I know Zay Flowers got paid. I know you have Jacoby Lane going off
I
right
mean,
now
it's
in
not like they
training
really
camp.
lost anyone though.
They didn't, but I can't bank
Like
on Lamar
they
Jackson to stay
lost
healthy for a full
likely.
season.
Yeah, but okay, Lamar could have 3 MVPs right now, realistically. And
He
last
definitely
year,
no, no, nothing
yes,
against
he
the
was not
talent.
healthy, and he's good for 1 sick game every year. It's gonna happen. But, like, Lamar has shown us over a longer duration of time that, like, he
Yeah.
can be just as healthy, if not healthier than the average quarterback. And he's been smarter. He's very savvy as a scrambler,
Mhm.
along with being obviously one of the best scramblers in the league. But like he's not like a Jane Daniels or like a Jaxson Dart where he's putting himself in harmful situations. Um, so I don't really think the injuries are going to be like super sticky with him.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'm pretty high on this team to be honest. And then you bring in Ioane, you bring in Zion Young, you bring in Trey Hendrickson as well, and then you get, like I said, a massive upgrade in the defensive mind upgrade, and potentially a lateral move and bringing in Declan Doyle over Todd Monken. We'll see how that kind of plays out, but it is going to look a little bit different on the offense, which Ravens fans have been advocating for a while now. Even if they do like Monken to a certain degree, but yeah, I mean, I'm this team
That's
is like
fair.
just consistently good, and we didn't even mention that like they have a defensive player of the year caliber player in Kyle Hamilton, who if
Yeah.
something goes wrong, you just throw
He's a
Kyle
chess
Hamilton
piece.
there.
He's
It's
definitely
good.
definitely a chess piece. And I will say this, I think if they were at the 10.5 line only, I probably wouldn't even throw the only reason I really threw them out here because they were towards the bottom of my list. I did have the Bucks above them. I didn't wanna, hate on the NFC South too much. Didn't wanna hit
We
the
can do it.
hit the bias too hard. The other team I will say I had here was the Chiefs at 10.5 wins, which I feel is high for them as a team that
I mean, that's
didn't
fair.
and let me
I'm
say
just
this.
kind of like abstaining. I'm abstaining from any like Chiefs takes this year, to be
I
honest. Just
I
the supporting cast is so bad around Mahomes.
Yeah,
Besides Kenneth Walker, obviously,
and
but like the
Cyrus,
weapons are in
the
Cyrus, of course.
the Lord and Savior Cyrus Allen for the Chiefs fans out there,
Yeah,
that they're banking on a guy that has not played a regular season snap or even a preseason snap, who is apparently gonna
yeah.
save their franchise, but
I think it might be an all time not his fault year for Mahomes. So
yeah,
yeah, kind of
yeah.
just like staying away from that. But
I
yeah,
mean, the only reason I feel like I have what is it, the ethos, the credible ability, or is it the pathos?
yeah, ethos.
Ethos. I feel like I have the ethos here to talk about this because I called them going sub sub 9-8 last season, and everyone doubted me. Everyone doubted me, and I stuck by my take. And look what happened. Look what happened. I'm basically the next big thing in terms of predicting the Chiefs. I think everyone should rely on my takes here now. Um, no, in all seriousness, I do believe that they are overrated here at 10.5 win over under just because, like you said, I mean, you're banking on a Rashi Rice that can't run a route right now, and a Travis Kelsey who is coming off. He still balled out last year, but he's another year older. You see photos of him at training camp. Maybe he's a little overweight. Maybe he's not. I can't really tell. I can't get the vibe from him. He seems bought in. He seems all bought in to the season, but I don't know. This Chiefs team. This is seeming like.
It's weird.
Let me ask you this, Sturb. If you're the
Hmm.
Chiefs, you go into this year, you finish under 9 wins again this year. What is the path forward? You have to go probably offensive weapon in the draft, right? I mean, you have
I
to
mean,
get
what does it look like? Did like someone get injured, or
no,
K Walk went down for the year?
just sub 9 wins or nine or less wins. I will say. What if you get 9 wins even?
I mean, it's definitely a disappointment. Like anytime you're not making the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes in his prime is, I would consider a failure. Because it's
Yeah,
definitely like if you get a full healthy season of him, he's definitely good enough to get you into the playoffs.
definitely.
And definitely good enough to go on a run. So like, what does that say about your
Mhm.
coaching staff and the rest of your roster? So I would expect some fairly large shakeups. Even if they don't get to like 8 wins, I would expect a pretty large shakeup. I don't know if Reed would get fired.
I think it would
He'd
have to
probably
be time. I think it has to be time.
he would probably get another year. Um, but I don't know. Maybe he steps down from play calling duties. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's kind of like his whole thing. I don't
or
know.
pulls kind of like a Tomlin where it's like, yeah, it was a mutual decision, but it
Oh yeah, he's not going to be outright fired. Like
yeah,
I don't think he would directly go somewhere else. Like I think it would be exactly that. It would be like, okay,
we're
you
kind
got
of
to leave.
parting
You got to
ways.
leave, or we're
Yeah.
going to fire you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and he could be a baller when he's as an analyst. Andy Reid as an analyst, maybe that would be some fun times. Wear a Hawaiian shirt in the booth, maybe rock that. I would love to see Andy Reid in the booth give his takes, but yeah, I think those are my three teams there that I kind of want to throw in the hat, all in like the same range. Because like you said, Sturb, I do think that the overrated teams are a little bit harder to pick for me than the
yeah, for
underrated
sure.
teams. I think they're all kind of in that same grouping where I'm like, yeah, these teams could be overrated, but at the same time, I could see them outperforming expectations just because of who they are. The only one I can't see outperforming expectations are the Cardinals. I just can't see it because of their schedule.
They could easily get two
But
wins
it's
that are
just
just pure bullshit, dude.
yeah, I mean, who were they playing last year? Wasn't it the Titans? No, they had the reverse just random bullshit loss because of the who was it? Mari DiMercato
Oh yeah, the fumble at
dropping the
the
ball
yeah
at the end zone, and then the interception that became a touchdown for the Titans. I mean, that
yeah.
was so maybe the inverse. You're right. Maybe the inverse of that happens and they outperform expectations because of that. But man, it's tough. It's tough. Do you have any other honorable mentions you want to throw out there?
Not really. We kind of like hinted at the Bucks, but that's mainly just kind of based on vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'm just not high on Todd Bowles at all. And we know my feelings on Baker as well. But yeah, I mean that's kind of it for like the overrated team. Like you said, it was kind of harder to create like a short list for the overrated teams than it was the underrated teams. And that's kind of how it works because a lot of the underrated teams, just how the NFL operates with injuries and
Mhm.
everything. Like a couple of those underrated teams that quote unquote, should have reached their ceiling are going to have like a quarterback injury or like, I don't know, someone goes down in the Texans defense and it doesn't look quite the same, or you know, Nick Benito misses a couple games. Like it could, that's how the over and unders work. Is they,
Yeah. I can see
there's a
that.
couple teams that are going to bottom out, making everyone look intriguing going into the year. But yeah.
Did you have any underrated teams you wanted to mention real quick that you didn't touch on?
No, I think that was about it.
Okay.
Like there's a definite tier of like four or five.
Yeah.
But
What
yeah,
about what about the Vikings? You think they could go
yeah. I
underrated
mean,
this year?
with the NFC North, it kind of just like goes back and forth in my mind
Yeah.
like every day for me. Yeah. So the Vikings are at what 8.5 right now? Yeah, eight and a
Yeah.
half, pretty much pure even odds. I think I do think they'll be better than that. Like I would probably have them at like I guess this would have qualified them for my list. I would have them at like 10.3 ish, somewhere around there. Um,
Uh,
and then like I do think their ceiling is pretty good. Like I think their ceiling is definitely better than their median.
mhm.
Because you have Brian Flores defense that's good enough to get you pretty damn good ceiling every year. Um, and then Kyler Murray, if he is like back to
Himself a little
a
bit.
pretty damn good quarterback, and then you have KOC Jetta's there as well. Like I think the ceiling is very high for them, but the median, like I could see how it could go wrong. So
And then finally, Stir, one last thing before we end this episode. I got to ask you,
mhm.
is Drew Brees closer to Tom Brady than Matthew
this is this
Stafford
is
is to Drew Brees?
this is not a discussion, and it's
Because
yes.
I am seeing all over my timeline that Matthew Stafford is now better than Drew Brees. What are your thoughts?
It's objectively false.
Yes. And
Yeah. As
that's the only
someone
quote I'll
who
take.
went to Purdue and is a Saints fan, I understand how that looks. However, it's objectively false.
I mean, you look at the guy's stats alone. Matthew Stafford's never compared to Drew, and Drew has never had a weapon like Megatron. I will say Michael Thomas is probably pretty close there. I mean, in his peak, it was one of the Nick Underhill posted a great story. It's one of the greatest connections of all time, just statistically in terms of success rate when he was targeting Michael Thomas in comparison to other quarterback receiver connections. But I mean, Drew Brees, I saw someone comment Drew Brees never sniffed an MVP. Like there's just a bunch of salty Lions and Staffords
That
fans
kid's
out
got
there
to
that are
be
just like,
6 years old.
yeah, like there's just a lot of idiots out there right now that recency bias is making them think, oh yeah, Matthew Stafford is a demigod compared to the other
Yeah,
quarterbacks in the league right now. And it's like you look back 10 years ago, Matthew Stafford was still good. He's still probably a I don't think Matthew Stafford has ascended into like in a better or a higher tier than he was. I think he was still a really good quarterback, but he was never in the upper echelon, top 3,
yeah,
top 5 quarterbacks ever in his prime. And I think he's still probably in his prime, I think you could say, just because he's still able to make throws that a lot of other quarterbacks can't. But in the era of quarterbacks that we watched growing up, I just don't think you could say he's better than a lot of I mean, the top 3, top 5 guys in that
yeah.
era. I mean, it's
And
just
that's kind of like my big problem with accolades is that, voters vote on them and not me. Like Drew Brees has had several seasons that were better and more impressive than Stafford's last year when he won the MVP.
mhm,
Like I wouldn't have given the MVP to Stafford. I don't think he's a top three quarterback currently in the league right now. I think you have Lamar,
he's good, but he's got
Mahomes,
insane
Drake. I would
weapons.
have Drake
Yeah.
above him. Josh, obviously, like Brees for a long period of time was a top 3 to 5 NFL real life quarterback, regardless of whatever the voters voted on that year.
Mhm.
And that has a lot to do, obviously, with statistical output, which has a lot to do with your offensive situation, and has a lot to do with the team around you as a whole. And I do think they both had like elite play callers, so it's kind of a wash there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't really see how this is arguable at all. It's really just like he won the MVP last year, which again, like I said, I wouldn't have given to him. And that's not to like take away from the season he had last year or anything, but Drew had several better seasons that were better than Matthew
Mhm.
Stafford in 2025 and better than Drake May in 2025. Like it doesn't really say anything about those guys individually. It's just calling it how it is. So yeah,
Yeah, no,
it makes no sense.
I completely agree with you. It's pure recency bias, and I do not believe Matthew Stafford will be seen as a first ballot Hall of Famer when he gets retired and the Hall of Fame discussion comes up. I just don't see that happening. I mean, when you're with the Lions and you don't even win a single playoff game for that long of a span of your career as a quarterback, I think it's a pretty telltale sign. I mean, Drew Brees was carrying very, very bad defenses for
Yeah,
a time to even just being able to win games and struggling. I don't see Matthew Stafford even being able to do that. If he had the weapons he has right now and the same defense, maybe he'd be able to, get to the playoffs as like if he had the defense Drew Brees had, but he had Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Kyrie Williams, and the rest of them, maybe he would be able to still win games, but I just don't see them being even on a level with one
yeah,
another. But anyways, that'll do it. I mean, that's just a quick throw in discussion I wanted to have to calm the conversation of the Drew Brees, Matthew Stafford talks because I can't stand it, man. It's just it
yeah,
boggles my mind that it's even a conversation. But anyways, that will do it for this episode of the Jenks Island Podcast. Next week, we're going to start our fantasy content. Next week and the week after that, we got 2 fantasy episodes coming for you guys. And then after that, we're going to do a betting episode, so like parlays and future bets for the upcoming NFL season, as well as betting on or picking our award winners for the upcoming NFL season. And then obviously, week 1 will be here. So this season and this offseason will be a lot of fun. The rest of the offseason, I should say. So we're getting ready for the NFL week 1. We'll have a couple fantasy episodes for you guys, but that'll do it for this one. Make sure to check us out on social media at Jenks Island, wherever you get your podcast at Jenks Island as well. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys next week.